You probably don't know how armor works in League of Legends. And that's because it doesn't work intuitively how you would think it does. Or at least not all the way. If I were to ask you, how much damage reduction does 100 armor give? What would you say? Now, what if I told you that almost every champion in the game has more than 100 armor at level 18? Does your answer change? Hello and welcome to another entry in the League Encyclopedia. I'm Robin, and today's video is brought to you in 3 graphs. Look at this graph! Oh, and I guess I should tell you that the correct answer to the intro question was 50%. But that's for the second graph to explain. So armor in League of Legends reduces physical damage. Ooh, big revelation, I know. But it reduces it by a fraction of the incoming damage, not a flat amount. And the formula for that, if you ignore negative armor values, which pretty much never happen in the game, the formula is this, where R is your armor, and DR is the damage received, and DM is the ultimate damage that you receive post-mitigation. Now, you might have already noticed there's a drop-off, a limit, an asymptote if you will. And that makes sense, since you can't really reduce something by more than 100%. On the y-axis, you'll notice it starts at 500. And that's the arbitrary raw damage I chose to calculate this with. Now let's generalize it to show percent damage reduction and explain the question from the intro. Okay, I know I just used that effect, but look, I learned how to do it for this video, and I'll be damned if I don't get some mileage out of it, okay? Anyway, by converting the damage received into a percent reduction, we can very clearly see that not all armor is created equal. If I've got 50 armor, and I buy 50 more, we see that I get about 13% more damage reduction. Whereas if I have 100 armor and I buy 50 more, I only get about 10% more damage reduction. And this effect only becomes more dramatic the higher your armor already is. Going from 150 to 200 yields less than 7% additional damage reduction. Now you're probably thinking, I guess stacking armor is pretty bad actually, and I should buy more health from now on. And well,
what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
And to explain why stacking armor isn't bad, we need our third graph. Drumroll, please. A straight line? How can this be if there's diminishing returns on additional armor?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
We're looking at effective HP against physical damage, given certain HP and armor values. Effective HP is just HP as scaled by armor. So if you have 1,000 health and 100 armor, your effective HP against physical damage is 1,500. Since 50% of 1,000 is 500, and all physical damage you receive is reduced by 50%. It would take 1,500 damage to kill you. So now I hope you're thinking, okay, so at what HP and armor values should I be buying one over the other to get the most bang for my buck? Oh, you weren't wondering that? Okay, I guess just thanks for watching, like and subscribe, hope to see you next time. Anyway, for those of you who were wondering that, the answer to that is actually really straightforward. It's always armor. Well, as long as you have at least 750 health. So, in the super early game, a ruby crystal is almost always better than a cloth armor in a vacuum. But let's break that down. You have 600 health and 50 armor, let's say. This means that you have an effective health pool of 800 against physical damage, because 50 armor gives 33% damage reduction, and a third of 60 is 200, so 800. Now, if you were to add 1 armor to that, your effective health would go up by 1%, or 6 HP in this case, so you'd be at 806. But 1 armor costs about 7.5 times that of 1 HP. So the question you have to ask is, when does 1 armor add more than 7.5 HP? And this brings us to the magical number of 750. Any armor after that point will give you more than 7.5 HP per point, so it becomes the more gold-efficient stat against physical damage. I should mention that virtually every champion has at least 750 health by level 3, even without runes and items. So that just seems wrong, right? Like I must have done something wrong? How can I show you this graph where there are diminishing returns and then reach a conclusion using this graph where I say there aren't any? To be honest, I don't know. The math checks out. I spent several hours trying to make it make sense, but at the end of the day, it's true, it just feels wrong. This ignores one obvious caveat, and several minor ones too. The obvious one is, what about magic damage? Armor does nothing against that. But the same math applies for magic resistance, except the magic breakpoint is closer to 650 HP actually. I'm not trying to convince you that armor is OP actually and that you should always buy it, but I am trying to shed some light on how resistances work and share that like stacking it isn't bad. You don't have diminishing returns. So if you're against a full physical comp, don't think that you need to stop buying more armor, because you don't. In fact, it's better to keep buying more armor. I also mentioned a few minor caveats as well, which I want to list off here, but I won't elaborate too deeply. Feel free to ask in the comments and I'll be happy to share some more information there. So if your team has a lot of healing, resistances are even better than pure HP. Think Vladimir. If you get 150 HP per Q, but you have 100 armor, it would take 225 physical damage to get through that. If your champion has built-in bonus stats, think Leona or Poppy W, which gives resistances, then HP becomes more valuable as a stat because it scales those existing resistances. That's part of why Warmog's Leona was so effective. Now, if you're up against mixed damage, but bursty team comps, then HP becomes more efficient. For me, this little exploration into the mechanics behind armor and magic resist was quite useful. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely thought armor had diminishing returns just from hovering over my armor in-game and seeing that I was getting less % reduction per point, basically. I'm curious if any of you also thought that, or if you already knew all of this. Let me know down below in the comments. As always, thank you for watching if you made it this far. I appreciate you. Give the video a like if you want more graphs in the future. I hope to get better at motion graphics, so subscribe if you want to see some more funky ways to display mundane information. And I hope you learned something today. Thanks for watching this entry in the League Encyclopedia.